All right, let's hit another theme in relation to anarchism, and that is the theme of autonomy and responsibility in relation to the political state and perhaps other types of entities. Now, one book I might recommend on these themes is quite the little classic of anarchist political theory, In Defense of Anarchism by Robert Paul Wolff, which takes a Kantian moral perspective to support anarchism. Now, in Kant's moral perspective, every evil act by a human being is characterizable as a violation of the autonomy of other persons. Now, I'm not sure whether that's overall as a satisfactory global moral theory, but that certainly is of the essence of the evil of many acts, using people as means rather than respecting them as ends in themselves. Now, autonomy and responsibility are correlated, so that if I am coerced into doing something, or if someone is operating my body like a marionette and I'm helpless to resist, I am not the agency of the actions that my body is performing. So if somebody comes in here and ties me up and forces me to commit a crime or something like that, literally forces my body to move, that's not my crime, it's his crime, because it's not the result of my agency. It's not my decision to do this bad thing. And in general, every compromise of a person's autonomy is a compromise of their moral agency. Every way that you diminish somebody's freedom is a way of diminishing the moral content of their lives. And this basic insight, I propose to you, will end you at anarchism, along with some other material or whatever. Now, one thing I should say is that, for many centuries in philosophy, there's been a fad for collective identities, whether they're classes or Rousseau's general will, identity politics of gender, national identities, like the nationalism of the 19th century, German nationalism, which ends you up in the Nazis and so on. All these ways of balling or bailing people up into big collective entities and holding that those are the basic agents of history. And one effect of that kind of idea is the diminishment of the agency of each person, and a kind of inability then, races would be another example, the inability then to assign responsibility for anything that those entities do to any individual within that category. Okay? Now, I propose to you that really, in effect, all of these collective identities resolve into the political state. That there's no, we may say that we're naturally, gendered, we're naturally, or that there's, a biological basis for race, or that there's a German or American national identity that's, that we take in with the drinking water in our place, in our spot, but really, actually, people have to be balled up by coercive procedures. These identities have to be enforced. They have to be created, and they're created by the political state. Now, the state is a beautiful, fantastic mechanism for relieving everyone of responsibility for what everyone is doing. And, the acme of this is war or genocide. So I paid for the Iraq War. I was taxed to support the Iraq War, although I opposed it. So, I'm responsible. I'm not responsible for what I was doing. That is, whatever contribution I was actually making to the Iraq War. It's not my fault. I was just obeying the regulations. Well, that's what every bureaucrat will tell you as they screw you over or whatever. It's like, or every school official, or a DMV official or IRS official is like, I'd like to help you. What you're saying makes sense, but I have to do with the regulations. I just can't do that, you know. In other words, which is just a way of saying I'm not responsible for what I am doing. That's the function of the political state. And in its worst moments, of course, or its typical moments, really, it gets you into, you know, forming up people into giant military machines or genocidal entities without anyone having responsibility for doing that, or concentrating all the responsibility in a single leader or a couple of leaders. And that's the other thing I would say about this, is that the function of political leadership, like Hitler, you know, or Obama, now I'm not equating these two, is at once to, you know, inspire us, and then also to relieve us all of responsibility, to fantastically take the weight of the responsibility of millions of people. So, look, you cannot slaughter 6 million Jews on your personal whim. It takes a mobilization of the whole society. But once Hitler, you know, gets into your head with his super mesmeric powers, you know, and forms you up into a killing machine, it's not your fault anymore. And once there's a coercive machinery and a set of regulations and people, you know, hundreds of people, thousands of people, millions of people in uniform and stuff like that, then, you know, all you're doing, you're not responsible for your mere obedience or your mere indifference. And of course, at the Nuremberg trials, everyone's going, I was just following orders. I was just obeying the regulations. That's the defense. I'm not responsible for what I'm doing, right? Because they are, somebody. And finally, you're going to get a fantastic, like, sacrificial lamb, and Hitler becomes one of his, he's like the Lamb of God, in a way. He takes the weight of everybody's sin, which is completely fantastic. You know, whatever kind of monster Hitler was, he didn't do the Holocaust personally. It took the mobilization of everybody, right? But they weren't responsible. And, you know, that is the function of political leadership, at once to relieve everybody of responsibility and fantastically to take on the responsibility of everyone. So if this whole stimulus thing that Obama's doing fails, he will be the scapegoat and he will be shamed in history, and it will all be his fault. Bush is responsible for the Iraq War, you know, or whatever you hate about Bush. And we, although we all did it and we all contributed to it, you know, literally with our money and stuff like that, we're not responsible. And so what I propose to you, though, is that the only political system that can take account of responsibility, that can preserve human autonomy, is a non-coercive political system, that is anarchism, and that the only real hope for the human race is a reassertion of human responsibility, and the only decent way to live is to try to take responsibility for your own actions. That's it for that one. Okay, just a short addendum to that. I did want to say that, you know, in my view, this is the purpose of the political state. I mean, moral responsibility and freedom are terrible burdens, very difficult to face in their full implications. And I think we don't really come together into these things in order to, you know, push forward our shared goals and stuff like that, so much as we come together into them in order to offload the burden of our freedom and responsibility onto abstract entities, or in a pinch, specific other people such as political leaders. All right.